Smart traveler tips. How do layovers actually work? For convenience sake, most Americans prefer non-stop flights even if they're a little pricier. If you happen to book a multi-stop flights, here is what you need to know about layovers and how airlines and airport for that matter work to make your trip a bit less hectic and your connection more enjoyable. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. I'm having a wonderful conversation with you today, and I'm doing fantastic. By the way, I hope you are doing great as well. If you are doing as great as I am, go grab a cup of coffee or tea or let's first talk about layovers and boarding passes. Now, when it comes to domestic layovers, things are pretty simple, right? So when you fly within, the U.S., Canada, Australia, or somewhere else, domestic layovers are relatively similar. Let's say you book both flights together on one itinerary as opposed to two separate paths. You'll get both boarding passes when you check in your first flight, right? That's how it usually works. So when you land at your layover airport, you need to look at the departures board and find the gate for your next flight. That's pretty simple. Now, when it comes to international layovers, things can get a little trickier here, because you have many variations, many routes, and many pathways. You also have a variety of situations that you can end up dealing with. Let's say your path is entirely with one airline or even two airlines. They're partners, right? In most cases, you'll get both boarding passes when you check in for your first flight. Now, if you used a booking engine, let's say booking.com, right, and your flights are with two different airlines, this is when things becomes a little complicated, especially airlines that are not really partners or not part of an alliance. You might only get your first boarding pass when you check in. Thereafter, at the layover airport, you'll have to find a ticket counter for the airline that operates the second flight to get your second boarding pass. Right, so this is why it's very important to either you book a flight with airlines that are partners, or at least you double check in advance. Right now, if you're not sure if your flights are with partner airlines, just ask at the ticket counter when you check in, so they will be able to tell you whether you can get both boarding passes or if you will need to get the second one at your layover airport. Now, the second thing I want to talk about here is that layovers and checked luggage. Now, what really happens with checked luggage on a layover? Now, again, for domestic layovers, things are pretty simple, very straightforward. Your checked luggage will be tagged to your final destination. Therefore, there's nothing for you to do while on your layover. You just wait. Your bags will be taken care of. They'll be taken off the first flight and loaded onto the second flight. That's when things are done domestically. Now, for international layovers, there is a slight variation. Why? Everything depends upon the airport and the country where your layover is. Let's say, for instance, you're flying somewhere for outside the US or Canada to an airport in the US or Canada. You'll have to collect and recheck your luggage. And it doesn't matter where you're going on your second flight. You have to collect and recheck them. Now, in most countries though, as long as both of your flights are on the same airline or partner airlines, your baggage can be transferred from the first to the second flight for you, right? The thing here is that always err on the side of caution. If you're not sure, you want to reach out to an agent when you're checking in and ask them if you need to collect and recheck your luggage at your layover airport. Right now, another thing you need to do here is that you can also try to read online about the rules when you're booking the flight, so you can read about them and know exactly what really happens to your luggage, and you can avoid luggage worries. Okay, now the third thing I want to talk about here is when it comes to how do layovers actually work. I want to address the visa thing. So layovers and visa requirements. Do you really need a visa, right? You need a transit visa for your layover, right? Now, the thing here is that, quick disclaimer, we're not providing any kind of advice or visa or legal advice. We cannot answer visa questions directly. You want to refer to the embassy website for the country you're visiting or transiting through to see if you require a visa. Now, I'm just giving you here general information about how layovers and visa requirements interact. Now, let's say, for instance, you have a layover, within the Schengen zone, the EU zone, and your final destination is outside of the Schengen zone, for instance. You don't need a transit visa. You don't, right? You want to double check for your nationality, but if you're an American, you don't. All right. Now, the US requires transit visas for many nationalities, unless your nationality is on the list of eligible, what they call the visa waiver program, what the US State Department calls the visa waiver program. All right. So if your country is on that list, then you're fine. If not, you need a transit visa. Now, the thing here is that this can be very complicated, because you have multiple situations, multiple circumstances, and multiple countries. So the best thing you can do here is to ask the airline or go online yourself and check beforehand. You can even contact the consulate or the embassy of the country you'll be transiting through before you book your flight. All right, I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. We are still having a conversation around how layovers actually work. If you like the content and the clarity of the topic so far, please consider subscribing to our channel and turn on the notification bell. We really appreciate that. We want to see a big shout out to our millions of fans and listeners in the United States and overseas. Please comment below, share, like, and subscribe. Now, what do we want to talk about? Layovers and border control immigration procedures. Now, do you have to go through border control, immigration, and customs on a layover? This basically does not apply on domestic flight. So on domestic flight, there's no requirement to go through border control / immigration, gates. But if you are on an international layovers, yes. Now, whether you have to go through immigration and custom really varies on the airport and the country, right? So the procedures are akin to checked luggage. So if you have a layover, for instance, in the US or Canada, you'll have to go through border control at the first point of entry. This is very important, at the first point of entry into the US or Canada, even if your final destination is somewhere else. All right. So this is important. So imagine, you're flying from, let's say you're flying from Asia to Mexico with a layover in the US or Canada. You'll have to get your passport checked and filled out. You have to fill out the customs form, as well as collect and recheck your luggage, even though you're not staying in the country or leaving the airport, right? Now, transit passengers, what does transit passengers mean, really? You are a transit passenger if you're not leaving the airport and are not staying in that country, right? So, in that case, you often don't have to go through immigration or customs, So you always want to ask around for info, and you want to look for a sign that says transit or transit passengers or transfer or connecting flights, right? It's very important. Now, if you have, let's say you have a really long layover, let's say 3 days, 4 days, and you want to go check out the city. I mean, no, 4 days, that's too unrealistic. Let's say you have an entire day. You have a long layover and you want to go check out the city. You'll have to go through immigration and customs in order to leave the airport, right? So this is something you can very easily do. It shouldn't be a problem here. Another thing I want to talk about here is airport security procedures and layovers. So the question is, do you have to go through security on your layover? Again, this is sort of akin, this is similar to the border control, immigration gates. It depends on the airport. The simple answer is you probably have to go through security, right? I mean, if this is an international flight, yes, but for domestic layovers, you don't have to go through security again, right? Now, in the era of terrorism, in the era of enhanced, security, airport security, some airports have separate security checkpoints for each terminal. So if you land in one terminal and your next flight is in another, you'd have to go through security again. Now, when it comes to international layovers, even those where there is a transit area, you will most likely have to go through security. Again, it's all about, we live in an era of enhanced security at airport. So this is very important. Now, remember too that if you have any liquids that you purchased beyond security at the first airport, that means that liquid, that fluid will not make it through security at the layover airport, right? So the rules apply. The rules for the first airport will also apply for the security gates at the second airport. So anything that was not allowed in the first one will not be allowed in the second one. So you want to double check that and make sure you don't have anything prohibited, or you don't have anything that could be confiscated. I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. We're having a conversation today around the smart traveler tips. How do layovers actually work? Now, another thing I want to talk about here is that layover benefits. You can get several layover benefits. You can, while you are there for 1 day or 20 hours, if you don't feel like actually leaving the airport and visiting the city, you can relax in a lounge, you can take a shower, you can chill, you can get a massage, right? Basically, of course, there are some of those services you have to pay for them. Some you don't have to, depending upon the class, the airfare class that you bought and the airline that you are using, right? Or if you have the sort of free miles or a reward or points that you want to accumulate, credit cards, you can really sort of use them and enjoy. You can enjoy a free stopover, right? Now the thing here is that a layover is less than 24 hours, while a stopover is more than 24 hours, right? So generally this is for international flights, while the cutoff for domestic flights is typically only 4 hours. So if you have a stopover, you basically are spending more than 1 day in the airport, in the city where you are having the layover, right? So you have a few airlines that offer stopover programs. You might want to double check that with your own airline and see if they have this sort of programs. You also have some airlines even offer you a free tour during a long layover. So if you have, let's say, 20 hours to spare, the airline will arrange everything for you to get out the airport, go check out a few museums, some historical sites, some food, really kind of enjoy yourself and be back on time for your flight. So this is something you want to double check with the airline. So those are some of the benefits. You can even stay at a hotel for free. Again, if the layover involves a lengthy overnight stay, the airline can offer you a free hotel room if your layover is over a certain length, right? Of course, there are some restrictions you must be aware of, but the idea here is that you're not just suffering while you are in your layover. They take care of you, right? So you want to read the conditions, you want to read the terms and conditions of the fare when you bought it, because some airlines have different restrictions based on the class of tickets you purchase, right? So you want to read again the fine print before booking. So airlines as diverse as Ethiopian Airlines, Emirates, Etihad, Qatar Airways, Singapore Airlines allow you to have, based on the ticket class that you buy, to stay at a hotel for free if you are on a lengthy, if you have a lengthy overnight stay. All right. So I think this is pretty much it for today's conversation. I hope you enjoyed spending this time with us. We were talking about how do layovers actually work. And for convenience sake, most Americans prefer non-stop flights, even if they're a little pricier. If you happen to book a multi-stop flight, I hope that you've heard what you need to know about layovers and how airlines and airports work to make your trip a bit less hectic and your connection more enjoyable. So I spoke about layovers and boarding passes, layovers and checked luggage, layovers and visa requirements, layovers and border control / immigration procedures, layovers and airport security procedures, layover benefits you could get. All right. Thanks. I will see you next time. And until then, travel smart and stay marvelous.